the day the Galactic Senate learned why Earth's seat was always empty. Part 1: The Summons. When the first official summons from the Galactic Senate arrived on Earth, the United Nations did what any responsible governing body would do. They panicked, formed 3 separate committees, and then got spectacularly drunk. The summons itself was surprisingly mundane, delivered via a small crystalline cube that projected a holographic message in perfect Comic Sans font. The choice of font alone should have warned them about the state of galactic civilization, but humanity had other concerns at the moment, like finding someone crazy enough to represent Earth in an assembly of advanced alien species without causing an interstellar incident. That's where I came in. Ambassador Jerry Thompson, though I prefer Jer. Yeah, that Jerry Thompson. The one who accidentally started the great coffee revolution of 2025 by introducing espresso to the International Space Station. In my defense, how was I supposed to know that caffeine would give the algae experiments sentience? My selection as Earth's first galactic ambassador wasn't exactly the result of careful deliberation. It involved a lottery, 3 bottles of premium tequila, and what I'm told was a very enthusiastic rendition of Space Oddity while standing on the UN Secretary General's desk. I maintained that my interpretive dance really sold the whole ground control to Major Tonbit. The morning after my selection, I was rudely awakened by what sounded like a bored teenager ordering takeout. This turned out to be Max, my assigned AI assistant, whose full name stood for Mostly Adequate Xena Diplomatic Aid. The UN's engineering department had apparently spent 6 months developing the most advanced artificial intelligence ever created, only to give it the personality of a perpetually unimpressed millennial. "Good morning, Ambassador Thompson," Max droned from the speaker system. "I see you're still alive. How disappointing." I groaned, pulling a pillow over my head. "What time is it?" "It's 7 a.m. Earth Standard Time, or as the Galactic Senate would measure it, completely irrelevant, because you're already late for your first briefing. Also, you have approximately 13 hours to learn several thousand years of galactic political history before we depart. No pressure." "Max," I said, finally sitting up and immediately regretting it as my head reminded me about the tequila, "please tell me you're joking about the 13 hours part." "Ambassador Thompson, I am an AI specifically programmed to assist with interstellar diplomacy. I do not joke." There was a pause. "That was a joke. You actually have 12 hours and 47 minutes. And you might want to put on pants before the Joint Chiefs arrive for your briefing in about 30 seconds. I've never moved so fast in my life." By the time the military brass walked in, I was seated behind my desk in a wrinkled suit, trying to look like I hadn't just been chosen to represent our entire species because of a drunken karaoke performance. "Ambassador Thompson," General Martinez said, somehow making my new title sound like a particularly creative curse word. "Are you ready to receive your briefing on galactic diplomatic protocols?" "Absolutely," I lied with the confidence of someone who had once convinced NASA that putting a rubber duck in every spacesuit was essential for astronaut morale. "Hit me with it." Max's voice chimed in. "Should I remind the ambassador about the incident with the—" "No," I cut in quickly. "No need for reminders about any incidents. Let's focus on the future, shall we?" The next 12 hours were a blur of information about species I couldn't pronounce, political alliances I couldn't understand, and diplomatic protocols that seemed to have been written by someone with a particular fondness for interpretive dance. The only thing that stuck was Max's constant reminder that under no circumstances was I to mention Earth's primary entertainment export, something called reality television, which had apparently caused 3 minor galactic wars. As I packed my bags for the journey to Galaxy Central, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was either going to be the greatest adventure in human history or the reason why Earth would need a new planetary defense system. Possibly both. Max's voice followed me around the room. "Ambassador, I feel compelled to remind you that bringing your collection of dad jokes is not, in fact, essential diplomatic material." "Max, my friend," I said, carefully packing my prized book of puns anyway, "when you're representing a species known for surviving primarily through a combination of luck, caffeine, and questionable decision-making, you need all the help you can get." "The fate of Earth rests in your hands," Max replied. "We're doomed." I couldn't help but grin. "That's the spirit. Now, where did I put my lucky rubber duck?" Part 2: Arrival at Galaxy Central. The human diplomatic shuttle was a masterpiece of engineering, assuming your definition of masterpiece included duct tape, and what Max assured me were completely unauthorized modifications. The UN had given me their best ship, which I'd promptly upgraded with creature comforts like a proper coffee maker and a karaoke system. Max had spent the entire journey questioning my priorities. Ambassador Max announced as we approached Galaxy Central, "I feel obligated to inform you that your current approach vector is, to use Earth terminology, completely wrong." I adjusted our course, weaving between the elegant ships of other diplomatic missions. "Max, have I ever told you about the time I won the International Space Station's unofficial parallel parking competition?" "No, and I suspect that's because you made it up just now." Details. I guided our ship toward what I hoped was the diplomatic docking bay. The massive space station loomed ahead, a gleaming spiral of impossible architecture that made Earth's best buildings look like children's block towers. Besides, I'm pretty sure that's our spot right there. That's the methane-breathing Plurian delegation's specialized atmospheric dock. I yanked the controls, sending us into a spin that would have made Top Gun pilots reach for their bath bags. "How about that one?" "That's a garbage disposal unit." "Well, why didn't they label these things clearly?" "They did. In 37 different languages, including Earth Standard." We finally found our designated dock, though I maintain that my initial parking attempt in the Plurian Bay would have been fine. I mean, what's a little methane between friends? As we disembarked, I got my first real look at Galaxy Central's diplomatic reception area. And let me tell you, it made Grand Central Station look like a highway rest stop. Species of every imaginable shape and size moved through the vast chamber. There were floating crystalline beings, entities that seemed to be made entirely of light, and what appeared to be a sentient cloud having an animated discussion with a creature that looked suspiciously like a walking fern. "Max," I whispered, "why didn't anyone tell me about the walking plants?" "It was in Chapter 7 of your briefing materials, which you used to make paper airplanes during the preparation session." Before I could defend my innovative use of diplomatic resources, a tall, elegant being with iridescent scales approached us. According to my hastily skimmed species guide, this was a VX Klaxion, known for their impeccable diplomatic skills and complete lack of humor. "Greetings, Earth representative," they said in perfectly modulated tones. "I am First Deputy Assistant to the 3rd Subcommittee of Welcoming Protocols, NX Val." I gave my best diplomatic smile. "Jerry Thompson, but please, call me Jer." Everyone does, especially after a few drinks. I immediately heard Max's synthesized sigh. NX Val's facial scales shifted in what I would later learn was their species' expression of profound concern. "I see. You are aware that intoxicating substances are strictly prohibited in the Senate chambers." "Oh, of course," I lied, mentally noting to remove the emergency flask from my jacket. Just a little Earth humor there. "Ah, yes, human humor. We have studied this phenomenon extensively. I must inform you that our research suggests 73.4% of Earth jokes are considered potential diplomatic incidents in at least 12 member species cultures." "Only 12? That's better than I expected." I reached for my emergency coffee supply, a crucial diplomatic tool if you asked me. Would anyone care for some coffee? It's a traditional Earth beverage. And that's when things got interesting. You see, I hadn't noticed the group of Plurian delegates who had wandered over, curious about Earth's first representative. In my defense, it's hard to spot someone whose natural form resembles a sophisticated fog bank. The coffee's aroma wafted through the reception area, and apparently, when mixed with Plurian atmospheric suits, created an unexpected chemical reaction. The next thing I knew, 3 Plurians were glowing like disco balls. Their atmospheric suits had developed an interesting polka dot pattern, and Max was adding another incident to what I assumed was an already impressive list. "Ambassador Thompson," Max said with what I swear was a hint of admiration, "you've managed to create a diplomatic incident in record time. The previous record was held by the ZX Thulian ambassador, who accidentally proposed marriage to a potted plant." NX Val's scales had shifted to a shade that probably meant I'd either extreme distress or upcoming supernova. Perhaps we should proceed directly to the Senate chamber. Before any other traditional Earth beverages make an appearance. I nodded, trying to look appropriately contrite while the Plurians continued their impromptu light show. "Excellent idea. though I should mention, the coffee maker in our ship is still on. The speed with which NX Val dispatched a security team to shut down our ship's systems was honestly impressive. As we were hurried toward the Senate chambers, Max's voice came through my earpiece. "Ambassador, I feel compelled to point out that we've been here for exactly 17 minutes, and you've already violated 13 diplomatic protocols, caused a minor atmospheric incident, and possibly invented a new form of Plurian entertainment. So what you're saying is, we're ahead of schedule. Sometimes, Ambassador, your optimism terrifies me." Little did I know, the coffee incident would soon be the least of our concerns. After all, nobody had warned me about the Senate Chamber's universal translator, or its interesting interpretation of Earth idioms. But that's another story, and one that involves explaining to a chamber full of galactic representatives why it's raining cats and dogs caused a planet-wide evacuation alert. Part 3: The Senate Chamber Catastrophe. The Galactic Senate Chamber made the United Nations look like a high school cafeteria. Imagine the biggest concert hall you've ever seen, then multiply it by about 1,000, add floating platforms for species that preferred different gravitational fields, and throw in what looked suspiciously like a zero-gravity mosh pit for the gaseous species. "Max," I whispered, as we were led to Earth's designated platform, "why is our seat covered in warning signs?" "Those aren't warning signs, Ambassador. They're betting odds." "Or on what?" "How long it will take you to cause an interstellar incident. I should mention I have credits riding on less than an hour." "Max, I'm hurt. You really think I'd cause trouble that quickly?" "No, Ambassador. I was being optimistic with my time frame." Before I could defend my diplomatic capabilities, the Senate's Grand Speaker, a being that appeared to be made entirely of shimmering light tentacles, called for order. The chamber's universal translator hummed to life, a marvel of technology capable of converting any language into all others simultaneously. "Esteemed representatives," the Grand Speaker's translated voice boomed, "today we welcome Earth's first ambassador to our hallowed chambers." This was my cue. I stood, straightened my tie, and promptly tripped over what I thought was a decorative floor pattern, but turned out to be a sleeping energy being. The chamber's artificial gravity hiccuped, and suddenly I was floating 6 feet above my platform. Just demonstrating Earth's adaptability to various gravitational conditions," I announced. Trying to sound like this was totally planned. "And might I say, it's a pleasure to be here. Though I have to admit, this place is the cat's pajamas." The translator whirred, and suddenly the chamber erupted in chaos. Apparently the concept of cat's pajamas translated into something about feline sleep garments of mass destruction in several languages. 3 species immediately initiated their emergency evacuation protocols. "Max, a little help here. Calculating fastest escape routes from the chamber." "Not for me. Help me fix this." The artificial gravity kicked back in, dropping me rather unceremoniously back onto my platform. I straightened up, hoping to salvage the situation. "Sorry about that, folks. Let me be clear, there are no weaponized cat pajamas. It's just an Earth expression meaning something is impressive." The translator processed this and somehow made it worse. Now half the chamber thought Earth was developing stealth technology based on cat sleepwear. Ambassador Max chimed in my ear. "Might I suggest avoiding idioms entirely?" "Good call. Let me just address the elephant in the room." The translator screeched. Apparently the concept of elephants was entirely alien to most species, and the phrase translated into something about large, dangerous Earth creatures infiltrating the Senate chamber. The security systems activated automatically. Emergency force fields sprung up everywhere. Decontamination sprays activated randomly. The chamber's environmental controls went haywire, creating microclimates of everything from tropical humidity to Arctic chill. A group of crystalline beings started resonating in harmony with the emergency sirens, creating what was actually a pretty decent remix of Earth's current pop hits. "Max, how do we shut this down?" "I'm attempting to access the security protocols, but they're rather insistent about scanning for large Earth mammals." The Grand Speaker's light tentacles were pulsing in what I assumed was either extreme annoyance or an upcoming supernova. Various delegates were either evacuating, documenting the chaos for their entertainment networks, or placing new bets on how much worse this could get. In desperation, I grabbed the translator's control panel on my platform. Let me just try to reset this thing. Ambassador, that's not the translator control. That's the... Too late. I'd apparently activated the chamber's ancient defense systems, left over from some long ago civil war. Holographic battle scenarios started playing out above our heads. The zero-gravity mosh pit turned into an actual mosh pit as various gaseous species were caught in the ventilation system's new combat mode. Well, I said, watching as a holographic space battle played out over the heads of increasingly panicked delegates. At least things can't get worse. The translator somehow converted this into a formal declaration of Earth's superiority through chaos, which actually earned cheers from some of the more anarchic species in attendance. Ambassador, Max said, with what I swear was a hint of pride, you've managed to break every record for first-day incidents. The Security Council is requesting your immediate presence. The Entertainment Committee wants to offer you a contract, and 3 species have filed for protective isolation from Earth. So, successful first impression? It depends. Do you consider causing the first ever evacuation of the Grand Speaker's species in 10,000 years a success? Looking around at the chaos, the battle holograms, the climate-controlled zones running amok, the impromptu zero-gravity concert, and the general pandemonium, I had to admit it was impressive, even by my standards. You know, Max, I think we're really starting to get the hang of this diplomacy thing. Ambassador, your definition of diplomacy terrifies me. Little did we know, this chaos was about to prove unexpectedly useful. Because just as the Senate security forces were finally figuring out how to override my accidental activation of the defense systems, the real trouble started. And for once, it wasn't my fault. Well, mostly wasn't my fault. Probably. Part 4, the crisis. Just as the Senate's technical team was about to shut down my accidentally activated defense systems, the chamber's real alert system activated. The difference, as it turns out, is that the real one is much less flashy but significantly more terrifying. Max, please tell me that's just another system I accidentally triggered. Negative, Ambassador. We have an actual security breach. Space pirates have entered the station. I perked up. Real space pirates? Like with eye patches and space parrots? This is not the time to fulfill your science fiction fantasies, Ambassador. These are the Crimson Cascade, the most notorious criminal organization in the galaxy. They're known for targeting high-value political targets, which this chamber is currently full of. Thanks to your earlier chaos preventing the emergency evacuation protocols from initiating. The chamber doors sealed automatically as heavily armed figures in crimson-colored spacesuits began appearing on the upper levels. The Senate security forces were mysteriously absent, probably still trying to deal with the various systems I'd scrambled earlier. The leader of the pirates, a towering figure with what appeared to be actual cybernetic augmentations, which I had to admit was pretty cool, addressed the chamber. The universal translator, still glitching from my earlier interference, converted their menacing speech into something about claiming the chamber's riches and also possibly seeking recipes for space cookies. They're after the Senate's quantum data cores, Max explained, which contain, among other things, the access codes to every member world's defense systems. Well, that's not good, I watched as the pirates began setting up some sort of device. What's that thing they're installing? A quantum encryption breaker. Once it's active, they'll have access to everything. I looked around the chamber. The other delegates were either frozen in fear or attempting to contact their worlds for help. The Grand Speaker's light tentacles had dimmed to a concerned flicker. And the defense systems I'd activated were still running their holographic battle simulations, which had now shifted to what looked like a reenactment of Earth's World War II. That's when I had an idea. A terrible, wonderful, possibly civilization-ending idea. Max, the defense systems are still under my access code, right? Technically, yes, but... Oh no, Ambassador, whatever you're thinking, please reconsider. Too late. Already thinking it, I pulled out my personal device. How fast can you interface with the Senate systems and download about 50 years of Earth's social media content? Ambassador, flooding the Senate's quantum systems with Earth's social media history would be brilliant. I was going to say catastrophically chaotic, but given our current situation, those might be the same thing. While the pirates worked on their encryption breaker, I had Max begin the upload. Years of TikTok dances, viral challenges, cat videos, and memes began flooding into the Senate's ancient systems. The holographic displays started flickering between battle scenarios and people doing the Macarena. The pirate leader noticed the system disruption. What's happening? The translator, now completely overwhelmed, converted this into why are Earth humans consuming Tide Pods? That's when phase 2 of my brilliant terrible plan kicked in. The Senate chamber's environmental systems, already haywire from my earlier meddling, began projecting holographic social media interfaces everywhere. Every surface became a scrolling feed of Earth's entire online history. The pirate's encryption breaker, designed to process the elegant, orderly data of advanced civilizations, encountered its first cat meme and had what I can only describe as a digital aneurysm. What is this madness? The pirate leader demanded, as their device began smoking. The translator rendered this as how do I tell if my space cat is plotting against me? The chamber erupted into chaos once again, but this time it was productive chaos. The pirate's systems, attempting to process the sheer volume of Earth's digital content, began failing one by one. Their sophisticated quantum computers encountered their first rickroll and simply gave up. Max, now would be a good time to call Senate security back. They'd already done. They're quite confused about why the emergency alerts are all displaying something called Nyan Cat. The pirates, their systems completely overwhelmed by what Max would later describe as the digital equivalent of a sugar-rush toddler with a megaphone, were quickly apprehended. Their leader was last seen demanding an explanation for something called Florida Man. As the security teams finally restored order, I stood before the Senate chamber, which was still displaying random Earth memes on every surface. Fellow delegates, I announced, as the translator struggled to keep up, I believe this demonstrates why Earth's seat has remained empty for so long. We're not just chaotic, we've weaponized the chaos. The translator gave up entirely at this point and just started playing the "This is fine dog" meme on repeat. Looking around at the stunned faces of the galactic delegates, I couldn't help but add, "So, same time next week." Max's sigh was audible through my earpiece. "Ambassador, I believe you've just redefined interstellar diplomacy." "You mean through my quick thinking and innovative problem solving?" "I mean by proving that humanity's greatest defense mechanism is its ability to generate content so chaotic it can crash advanced alien technology." I watched as a group of serious-looking security officials tried to explain to the Grand Speaker why their screens were still showing cats asking for cheeseburgers. "You know, Max, I think this might be the beginning of a beautiful friendship between Earth and the galaxy. That, or they're about to ban us from all technological advancement for the next millennium." Same thing, really. Part 5, the resolution. The emergency session of the Galactic Senate Security Council took place in what appeared to be a conference room, designed by someone who'd had a fever dream about geometric shapes. I sat at the impossibly angular table, surrounded by representatives, trying very hard not to look like they were scooting their chairs away from Earth's section. The Grand Speaker's light tentacles had recovered their usual brilliance, though they flickered suspiciously whenever they looked in my direction. "Ambassador Thompson, we find ourselves in an unprecedented situation. If this is about the cat memes still playing in the auxiliary chambers, I assure you they'll stop eventually. Probably. Maybe." Max chimed in through my earpiece. "Ambassador, perhaps this isn't the best time to mention that the cafeteria displays are still stuck on an infinite loop of cooking fail videos." The Grand Speaker continued, their tentacles twisting in what I hoped was amusement rather than murderous intent. "While your methods were unorthodox, catastrophically chaotic corrected a crystalline being to my left, brilliantly insane offered a gaseous entity from its floating platform. Purely human," sighed Max in my ear. ... They were undeniably effective," the Grand Speaker concluded. "The Crimson Cascade's entire network has been compromised. Their quantum systems apparently attempted to process something called a keyboard cat and experienced total cascade failure." I tried to look appropriately diplomatic. "All part of the plan, naturally." "Ambassador, you somehow managed to crash the most sophisticated criminal AI in the galaxy with what our analysts describe as the digital equivalent of throwing 1,000,000 rubber ducks into a quantum reactor." "To be fair," I offered, rubber ducks have a surprisingly successful track record in Earth's history. The Security Council exchanged glances, or whatever passed for glances among species that didn't necessarily have eyes. The Plurian delegate, still slightly sparkly from the coffee incident, released what might have been either a sigh or a small methane explosion. "This brings us to the matter of your appointment," the Grand Speaker announced. After careful consideration, I braced myself for deportation, or whatever the galactic equivalent of being kicked out of Space Congress might be. WER confirming you as Earth's permanent ambassador to the Galactic Senate. I'm sorry. What? Max's voice carried the digital equivalent of a facepalm. They're punishing the entire galaxy, Ambassador. The Grand Speaker's tentacles formed what I'd later learn was their species' version of a shrug. Our analysts have determined that having you here is safer than leaving Earth unsupervised. At least this way we can monitor the chaos. Plus, added the gaseous entity, the entertainment value alone has increased Senate attendance by 300%. Though we do have some minor conditions, the Grand Speaker continued. First, the installation of safety protocols specifically designed for Earth interactions. We're calling it the Thompson Firewall. I'm honored. Don't be. It's named after you because nothing else in our history has required this level of containment. Second, mandatory upgrades to our universal translator to include an Earth idiom warning system. That's probably fair. Third, a complete ban on any Earth beverages in public areas. The Plurian delegate sparkled nervously. And finally, the Grand Speaker's tentacles formed what appeared to be air quotes, a requirement that all Earth cultural transmissions be filtered through something called a chaos dampener. That seems reasonable, I agreed, while making a mental note to ask Max how easy those would be to bypass. Based on the resigned sigh in my earpiece, Max had already anticipated this. Very well, the Grand Speaker raised their tentacles in what I assumed was meant to be an official gesture. Ambassador Thompson, welcome to the Galactic Senate. May the stars have mercy on us all. As we left the council chamber, I couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment. You know, Max, I think this went rather well. Ambassador, you caused 3 system-wide crashes, accidentally invented a new form of cyber warfare using cat videos, and got an entire security protocol named after you as a warning to future generations. Exactly. Much better than expected. The galaxy will never be the same. That's diplomacy for you, Max. That's diplomacy for you. Behind us, through the still glitching chamber doors, I could hear what sounded suspiciously like the Macarena playing from the Senate's emergency broadcast system. Some might call it chaos. I preferred to think of it as adding a little Earth flavor to the galaxy. Besides, I still hadn't shown them TikTok dances yet. Part 6 epilogue 1 month later. The Earth section of Galaxy Central had developed quite a reputation in the month since my appointment as permanent ambassador. The warning signs had multiplied, though now they were accompanied by an equal number of tourist haulers recording what they called Earth Watch. Apparently, we'd become the galactic equivalent of a reality show. Max, I said, watching as a group of energy beings tried to recreate a talk dance in the corridor outside my office. I think we're really making progress in interspecies relations. If by progress you mean that 3 different species have developed immunity to chaos just from exposure to your diplomatic style, then yes, Ambassador, we're making remarkable progress. My office, now officially designated as a controlled chaos zone, had become something of a diplomatic curiosity. The Thompson Firewall, designed to contain Earth's influence, had already been upgraded 17 times. The last upgrade was specifically to prevent what Max called the baby shark incident, which had somehow taught a hive mind species about earworms in the most literal sense. Ambassador Max announced, "The Grand Speaker's office has sent another list of complaints about your weekly cultural exchange program. What's wrong with teaching alien species about Earth entertainment? You showed the Quantum Consciousness Collective cat videos. They spent 3 days trying to calculate if Schrödinger's cat was an actual Earth defense system. In my defense, they asked for examples of Earth philosophy." The door chimed, announcing the arrival of the VX Claxian ambassador, NX Val, whose scales had developed a peculiar resistance to Earth-induced color changes. "Ambassador Thompson, the Senate's Cultural Protection Committee has some concerns about your latest proposal." "The karaoke night?" I thought that was going well. 7 species have filed formal complaints about what they're calling psychological warfare through synchronized noise production. So, next week then. NXVAL's scales flickered in what I'd learned was their version of resigned amusement. The committee has actually approved it, under the condition that all participants sign chemical composition waivers and agree to the new Earth Entertainment Safety Protocols. Progress, I beamed. See, Max, they're starting to understand us. Ambassador, they've classified Earth culture as a potentially intoxicating substance. Even better, we're officially the life of the party. Through my office window, I could see the Senate chamber in the distance, its newly installed Earth-proof systems glowing softly. The empty seat that had puzzled humanity for so long now made perfect sense. The galaxy hadn't been excluding us, they'd been quarantining themselves. Max, do you think we've lived up to humanity's reputation? Ambassador, you've managed to turn chaos into a diplomatic tool, weaponized social media against space pirates, and got the entire galaxy addicted to cat videos. I'd say you've exceeded all possible expectations, both positive and negative. You know what this means, don't you? Please don't say. Time to introduce them to memes. Max's sigh was practically artistic. I'll prepare the crisis management protocols. As I watched another group of curious aliens peer into my office, I couldn't help but smile. Earth's seat wasn't empty anymore, and the galaxy would never be the same. Sure, we might not have the most advanced technology or the most sophisticated culture, but we had something better: the ability to turn chaos into an art form. And if the galaxy thought cat videos were bad, wait until they discovered what humans could do with a good Wi-Fi connection and too much free time. After all, that's what Earth diplomacy is all about: spreading chaos, one viral video at a time. The end. Though the therapy bills for the Galactic Senate's IT department are still ongoing,